Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. I'm Carleen Johnson, the Center Square Washington's state government reporter. And in today's episode, it is the day after the initial returns from the primary. We have some of those results in some of the more heated congressional district contests. Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez will, in fact, face Senator John Braun in District 3 and in District 4. That's the race where we had the two Republicans fighting over who really had the Trump endorsement. We'll have some results in that contest for you as well. Then the latest on the fires in Spokane. There's a little bit of good news because we have at least a small fraction of containment on all three of those fires that consumed about 700 structures, mostly homes, last weekend. We have an alleged arsonist in custody, a man who apparently killed his father in 2010, served just about 8 years for manslaughter, got out in 2020, and then has spent the last at least couple of years in the Spokane area. The very latest on that case. And then what about former Governor Jay Inslee? You may recall, if you saw the social media posts and lots of pushback on social media, blaming climate change and global warming for the fires. Now we know we've got an arsonist, but whether or not climate change had anything to do with that, we wanted to have a conversation with Lands Commissioner Dave Upthegrove. We'll share some of that conversation. It was just by phone instead of video, but I'll share some of his comments with you in today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily. All right, let's dive in. A Republican backed by President Donald Trump emerged Tuesday as the front runner in the Central Washington race to succeed a retiring Republican congressman who actually voted to impeach Trump. We're talking about the race where Dan Newhouse is retiring, not seeking re-election in that contest. So we ended up with Republican Yakima Commissioner Amanda McKinney advancing on along with a Democrat, John Dureski. Both of them moved comfortably enough ahead based on initial returns that came in last night to basically preclude any of the other candidates in that wide field of candidates from advancing. It will be Amanda McKinney and John Dureski. McKinney led with 34.9% of the initial returns Tuesday night. Republican Jared Sessler was the other Republican who said that, no, I've got the Trump endorsement. He and Matt Benke trailed far behind with 14.3% and 10.3% respectively. So this was an interview I did with Amanda McKinney from a few weeks ago. I want to share part of that with you since she is going to be moving on to the November general election.
Central Washington District 4 has proven over and over again that they are a very smart, educated electorate, and we're the MacGyvers of the United States. We figure things out. Nothing gets past us, and I absolutely know that when people get down to the brass tacks of what actually makes sense and who do I think the president has endorsed, mine is the only story that actually makes sense, and I'm the only one who has proof of it. So I'm very confident that the voters are going to come to the conclusion, which is rational, reasonable, and logical, which is that Mr. Sessler is not being honest. And I am the only candidate that has earned the president's endorsement, and he stood by it. And there's been several occasions when the White House has affirmed, even most recently in this last week, I am the only candidate that President Trump wants to see serving in Congress to help his administration advance our platforms of conservative values that are going to help make life better for our American kitchen tables, our budgets, our businesses, our agriculture, our entire economy and border security, all of the advancements that the president has helped usher into the great golden age that we're going to experience. I'm going to be a part of that, and the president wants to have me by his side.
Now, Dureski, the lone Democrat in this contest, where it's pretty reliably red Republican district, he ends up advancing because there were so many other Republicans running, right? He got 30.8% of the initial vote return last night. He told me about a week ago that he thought he might end up being the front runner after the Tuesday results came in. Amanda McKinney was quite a bit ahead of him, but he came in second, again, with that margin of 30.8%. So here's part of my conversation with him sharing his confidence just about a week ago.
We want to win the primary and put up big numbers, and then we want to nationalize the race. We want, Cook County and the rest of the prognosticators to look at more than just dollars raised in past performance, because there's something else happening here, and we're making a play for it.
And you really think you can turn that pretty bright red district blue?
I do. And I mean, look, you've heard a lot of other kind of Democrats say something very similar to what I'm going to say, which is essentially not asking people to become Democrats. I understand that we've got some work to do in the Democratic Party. We've got to regain the trust of a lot of voters, and we do that by sending a new kind of candidate to Congress.
Now to the outcome in Congressional District 3 in Southwest Washington, where incumbent Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez is seeking re-election. She, of course, is advancing on, and she will face Republican Senator John Braun. They're both headed off to face off in that contest. Now, Gluesenkamp Perez ended up Tuesday night with 38.9%, followed pretty closely by Braun at 38.7%. It was something like 263 votes is all that separated the two of them after those first returns came in. And then Brent Henrick, a progressive Democrat who ran to the left of Gluesenkamp Perez, came in at 15.3%. So I had a conversation just this morning with Senator John Braun, who was feeling pretty good about where he came out.
We're excited about the outcome. These are good results for us. It paints a clear path to winning in November. It's going to be close, just like I've said all along. It's a swing district. We're going to have to earn every vote, but I feel pretty strong. I think probably the most interesting thing is, over 60% of the vote. This is a two-term incumbent. Over 60% of the voters said no. That's sort of a stunning outcome for the other side, and gives us an opportunity to go to win those votes and win the election in November. And we have worked really hard to build up our name ID and build trust with voters around the district. And we're starting from essentially from zero in 80% of the district, and we've gotten to I think a great result for the primary and a clear path to win the 50 plus one in the general. So it's going to be a race, no question about it, but we feel pretty good about where we're going. And she continues to try to villainize me and try to characterize me as something that's wholly different than my record of service and delivering results, while she is doing very little. And she's kind of playing this game with the far left of her party while still trying to pretend to be moderate that represents the district.
I did reach out once again to the campaign of Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, as I have several times. I was unable to elicit a response from the campaign. Wanted to get, their reaction, of course, because Senator Braun is suggesting that she only getting less than 40% of the vote as the incumbent is certainly vulnerable. And I did get a response this morning as well from Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh of Aberdeen for his take on this race. Because remember, this is one that the Republican National Committee is going to be paying a lot of attention to. They are hoping to flip this district and improve their numbers in Congress. So this is what Chairman Walsh sent me this morning. He said last night's result in WA 3, Congressional District 3, says more about the incumbent's weakness than anything else. Under 40% for a two-term Congresswoman seeking a third term. DSA leftists swearing they'll never vote for her again. MGP Marie Gluesenkamp Perez has never faced a general election path this difficult. She's going to exhaust herself with all the spinning she has to do. He went on to say John Braun is genuine. All he has to do is be himself and show voters he'll represent them well in D.C. So that is going to be a race that is going to get a lot of attention from the Republican National Committee. Again, they are hoping to flip that district back to Senator Braun and earn another congressional seat for Republicans. Now to Spokane, where favorable weather conditions are really helping firefighters get some initial containment, at least on those 3 devastating fires. According to Incident Command, the very latest from them, firefighters have gained a small percentage, but a percentage of containment on all 3. And they have a fire line dug around all 3 of those fires. They don't expect to see any crazy wind event like we had last weekend. We do have a 37-year-old man accused of starting the Old Trails fire. That was the most devastating of the 3 fires. He appeared before a judge yesterday for the first time since his arrest on Monday evening. He's held under $1 million bail at this point. There were 3 witnesses who reported seeing him in a suspicious location near Euclid Road, and that's where that fire started. They saw smoke just moments later. They called police. Now, police initially detained him and then released him. Apparently, maybe even questioned him a couple more times before he was finally arrested on Monday. So lots of questions about why this guy is even out right now. But here's a little bit more, a clip from television station KGW on this alleged arsonist.
Kids are probably going to have to go to counseling for dealing with all that with PTSD. Like, her daughter has anxiety, man, and to find out that, like, somebody started that, like, there's
Terrible.
a lot of families. A teacher that I work with right behind my house lost everything that he had, including his pets, and, like, to know that that all could have been avoided is heartbreaking, man.
Now, this is going to be interesting, too, because court records reveal that this guy came under scrutiny from authorities in 2 other arson investigations for fires in the Spokane area last summer. So you can be certain they're going to be looking at that once again. He was never charged in those cases, only questioned and apparently never charged. The sheriff in Spokane, Sheriff Knowles, did confirm, in fact, they've got all the court records from down in Arizona where this guy was convicted of manslaughter and sent to prison for killing his own father. He was 21 at the time, shot and killed his father, apparently already had some mental health issues, and ended up pleading guilty to manslaughter and was released then in 2020. Not exactly sure how long he's been up in Spokane, but again, lots of questions about the short prison sentence, why he would have come to Washington State upon his release. But I want to go back to something that Governor Jay Inslee, former Governor Jay Inslee, said as these fires were still raging last weekend. He posted on X a little video clip blaming climate change for the fires. Of course, now we know it was not climate change that caused these fires. It was an arsonist. But I did want to check in with my favorite climate guy to get his take on all this. So, Professor of Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Washington, Cliff Math. I wanted to get his take on the fires, the weather conditions that kind of got everything going last weekend, and ask him if he thought, in his opinion, if climate change and global warming had anything to do with the fires or the fire spread.
It's a beautiful morning here in Lopez Island, but I'm so concerned. Talked to my friend, a legislator in Spokane, whose home he had to evacuate because of these massive fires in Spokane County. The whole state's under threat now. Climate change. You know, climate change isn't some existential global thing. It's our neighbors. It's our friends. We had to fight for them.
I also chatted yesterday with Washington State Lands Commissioner Dave Upthegrove. He often cites global warming in his policies and how he approaches forest management. We had a phone conversation. He told me this in part. We'll put this up. He says the general consensus of scientists is the climate is impacting weather patterns, and that can sometimes have localized weather impacts. And so I do believe as our climate changes, it creates new challenges in fighting some of these fires. They are started predominantly by humans. It isn't climate change causing the fires. It's the climate change affecting the health of the forest, and it can affect weather conditions. So that was part of what he had to say about all of that. But he did indicate that he's doing a lot better with forest health and managing our forests, and believes that we're taking a lot more proactive approach under his administration than under his predecessor. And this is interesting. When you ask Google, and I did this morning, I said, did climate change cause the Spokane fires? The AI generated response back from Google said climate change did not directly ignite the Spokane fires, but it heavily supercharged the conditions that allowed them to explode into a catastrophic emergency. Climate change acts as a climate multiplier. So that was the response when you ask Google if the fires were caused by climate change. So much more to come in the next couple of days. We're getting new information about the fires. And of course, we're going to be following the very latest with the arsonist. He's got another court appearance scheduled for Thursday. So we'll have some more to share with you on episodes later this week. So that's it for today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily. As always, thank you for watching on this Wednesday. Hope to see you again on Thursday.